Hi there. It's May the 16th and we're continuing our progress through the book of 1 Samuel, and we've come to the remainder of 1 Samuel 18 and we're reading 1 Samuel 19 as well. This story is really the growing antagonism of Saul towards David. We remember that Saul is king, David has slain Goliath, has seen tremendous deliverance for Israel, and David goes on to be a great warrior for Israel, so much so that there begins to be a chant heard that is sung by the women of Israel. Saul has killed his thousands, but David has killed his tens of thousands. Saul takes this as something of a personal insult and also as a threat to his kingship. Now Saul is growing more and more disturbed and distressed, and he becomes quite murderous in his approach towards David, so that when David is playing before him, David continues to play plays music to soothe the soul of Saul when he's in his bad moods. But in a couple of those times, Saul takes his spear and he throws it at David. However, Saul then steps back from this idea of killing David, and he thinks, if I put David in the line of fire with the Philistines, then surely he'll be killed. But David just continues to win battles and to be triumphant over the Philistines. He's not getting killed. So Saul then has an idea. I know, I'll give David my daughter's hand in marriage, but I'll set him a quest that I know he won't be able to achieve and will end in his death. And so he says to David, I'll give you my daughter, but actually I want as her bride price 200 foreskins of Philistines, a very grim and grotesque bride price. David actually just rises to challenge, and off he goes and kills 200 Philistines and comes back with the grim trophies. And so that's not worked. That's not killed him off. So at the beginning of chapter 19, Saul now becomes more open about his plans. He talks to his household, and he particularly talks to Jonathan about his desire to kill David. Jonathan, of course, is in covenant with David, and so Jonathan speaks up for David and says there's no way he's going to do you any harm. Look what he did. He killed Goliath. He's actually a good man, and you're wrong to pursue him. So Saul steps back from it, but actually he's still intent on killing him. It grows, this passion, this furore against David grows, and eventually Saul sends people to arrest David at the house of at his house where his wife is. Now Michal gets wind. Michal is his wife. She's the daughter of Saul. She gets wind of the fact that Saul has sent soldiers to arrest David and to bring him to Saul to kill him. And so she actually lets David down out of a window to escape and replaces his body with a dummy in the bed. First of all, she says that that David is sick, that he can't come down. Saul pursues it and actually says, right, then bring me his sick bed and I'll kill him here in the palace. But then Michal, for her own protection, says, oh, David escaped and actually he threatened me in the process. I couldn't do anything about it. I'm just this weak woman. And Saul is really angry that Michal has let David go. And so David goes to Ramah and to a place called Naot, and there he gets together with Samuel. He takes refuge. He finally realizes that his life is in very deep danger, and so he goes to Samuel at Naot in Ramah, and he takes refuge with him there. Now Saul hears that David is with Samuel at Naot, and so he sends 3 sets of men to arrest David and to kill him. But to show how much the Lord is with David and how much he's protecting him, as each of these bands of messengers, as each of these bands of soldiers come close to the company of the prophets where Samuel is, the Spirit of God comes on them and takes them over, and they just begin to prophesy. They just begin to be filled with God's Spirit, and they are taken over. They can't do anything about it. And this happens several times to the men of Saul. Finally, Saul himself gets tired of this and says, I'm going to go myself. of course, you know what happens. He gets close to where Samuel is, and the Spirit of God comes upon him, as indeed the Spirit of God did when he was first anointed as king. This is the sad thing, that Saul has experienced the Spirit of God in the past, but here he is, and he is taken over. He's in one sense resisted by the Spirit of God as he comes near to the man of God to try and capture David, and he ends up naked on the ground, just uncontrollably in ecstatic utterance, unable to do anything about it. And he is frustrated in his plans against David. Throughout these chapters, we hear words about David that say David kept close to the Lord. David kept walking before God. In all this, David's heart was not turned against God. David's heart was not filled with malice. It's difficult when we walk through hard times, when we walk particularly maybe through persecution or opposition, to keep our hearts and our minds focused on God. But we see here that even in the midst of this turmoil and this hard time, David is seeking out God. He's seeking out the Spirit of God, and he actually comes under the defense of the man of God as he comes to Samuel. Let us continually seek to keep under the shadow of God's wing throughout our lives. Have a very good May the 16th.